what has your guys' experience been? Let me start with you, Katie. But what's your guys' experience been, kind of crossing between? So for you guys in academia, what's your experience been dealing with industry? And Chris, once now you're in industry, what's been your experience going back to the academic side of things? So Katie, we can start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I guess some of my interactions that I've had with different companies. So, um, there are a lot of companies that have similar research goals, right, to some of the research labs, right? So there's a lot of immunotherapy companies. They're asking the same questions that we are in the lab, right? So I think there's opportunities there. Like there's a company, Arsenal Biosciences, and so they are kind of a newer one, but they're kind of asking these same questions, right? Like, how are T cells, why do some people respond? Why do some not? How does the biology of T cells relate to these questions of response, right? So, they'll work with research labs. It's kind of a different way to get funding or maybe access to more samples or something like that. So that's been one way that I've seen it. But yeah, I mean, I think it's cool that you can have kind of both, be part of both things.
Mm-hmm. Tom?
Yeah, so I've worked with a couple of companies over the years. We get grants with them. They give us some resources and funding and ideas, and it's a great asset if you find the right combination, the right team.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get into too many details for one of them, but the idea, right, is that we have that joint partnership. So for one of them, they gave us a target that they were very interested in,
Mm-hmm.
and we've been able to use that and the funding to really explore macrophages and really get into some nitty gritty details, which are pretty cool. And additionally, industry moves fast. So if you ask them for something and you say, hey, we need this thing, we're pretty sure that it'll help us answer the question. It'll probably be there on Monday.
Yeah.
They're going to figure it out. They're going to slap it in a box and they're going to ship it to you. So it can be helpful to have those partnerships, those people who say, we're super invested in this. We think it's cool. We want this answer. We're going to give you whatever you need to get it. And not to say in academia that doesn't happen, but I think more often than not, sometimes you send an email and it's 3 weeks before you really set up the meeting to talk about something. And it will happen, there's no big deal, but sometimes you get something a little more overnight when you're working with a company who's got such a fast vested interest in whatever the particular project is. So having a partner like that can be really cool when you're trying to quickly advance a project.
Yeah.
And they offer a lot of great expertise. They're experts. There's a reason they're in this biotech,
Yeah, definitely. So Chris, from the other side of the coin, what's your experience has been like?
Yeah, so we it's interesting. So I imagine it's just kind of reverse from what these guys were. It's the other side of the same coin, right?
Yeah.
So one thing I'll say that's always interesting is to have conversations with academic partners, because the guys over in the academic realm have a lot more sort of freedom and interest in kind of a variety of realms. And so it's not unlikely that we'll sort of ask for one thing and get another thing. And be like, no, what I really need to know is this very specific number. Like, this is really cool. Here's this other experiment I did. And I mean, to be fair, these are two halves of the coin, and both of them are necessary, right? Industry is looking for things that are one step away from implementation, right? Like my job is to take things that are from an idea that we can conceive of a drug and make it a drug and get it through the FDA. Yeah. But we really don't like to go fishing, right? So if somebody's like, hey, let's start to think about new targets, I mean, that's a great way for like to get any of my senior management to like call me in and be like, stop saying that. Don't tell that to anybody. Like, just like, we don't go fishing. We're not interested in new targets, And so like, as these guys mentioned, what we do is we'll do these partnerships, right? And so we'll let the academic labs go looking for targets, and then we will look at their developability. And so what we'll do is we'll either have what typically happens, at least I can comment on my company, which is jokingly my 1.5 company of, my, not really my second experience, but really my 1.5 experience.
Yeah.
Where what we'll do is we'll lean pretty heavily on our scientific advisory board. And they're a bunch of academic scientists, and we'll have licensing agreements with them to do some academic stuff for us, and then vice versa, right? They'll come up with ideas, and we'll test them in our assays. And you guys could comment on this too. At least what I found personally is that when I'm in the industry realm, I'm focused like 95% of the time on human samples. Like we do very, very limited mouse work and very, very limited animal work. And so that gives us a certise, right, where we're very good at dealing with human blood and doing different experiments in human blood and with human tissue samples. But we're pretty much hamstrung when it comes to doing anything other than putting a tumor into a mouse and injecting it with a drug, right? We
Mhm.
don't have the same capabilities that those guys have.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
kind of, oh, go ahead, Katie.
Oh, I was just gonna, yeah, just to like emphasize that. Yeah, I think like, companies, they're really focused on one thing. And then academic labs, you're also surrounded by, other academic labs who have different expertise, right? So even if I can't do a certain type of experiment, like there's probably a lab like down the hall, right, that can help me. So I think, yeah, it's just like different ways of doing things. Yeah, the academic side is a lot more exploratory. You're kind of exploring new ideas. And then when you really like in a company, you're just trying to push it through.
Yeah.
But definitely complement each other a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely two sides of a coin.
Mm-hmm.